Now, welcome everybody to today's kickoff of our Small Business Week here at the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce. We're actually starting with the diversity program. We had a program earlier this morning. We had Our Town's radio show that we started with, but this is our first official program of the week. It is being sponsored in part by CPCC, and we have Lori Thomas on the call with us. Lori, you want to share what's going on at Central Piedmont and a little bit about the Maracas campus?
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you. And this is an exciting time for small business. And I'm happy to be here representing the Small Business Center at Central Piedmont Community College. Oh, sorry. And just checking my voice. And so, yeah, we are active here at the college. I am at Central Campus, but we have our Huntersville campus. And in fact, have a lot of things going on at Maracas. You may have seen the new buildings, and the programs are going almost back to normal. I won't say they're normal, but as you all know, we've been hit by the pandemic as well, but we are welcoming students back. And in particular, you know, we have some of the programs up there that are hands-on, including, I was just telling Bill, I'm going to be in the auto body class. So I'm restoring an automobile. So look forward to being up in Huntersville. It's a great location. I'm excited to be up there. And at the Small Business Center, we have counseling, we have programming, and we have all kinds of resources and referrals that we do. And so we hope that everybody will take part in the Small Business Center as they need it. We look forward to our partnerships with the chambers, but as well all the small business centers across the area, including the other counties that have joined us. So if you need any startup assistance or anything that you have questions about, the Small Business Center at Central Piedmont is there to help you out. So please call on us. We look forward to meeting you.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it very much. We're very excited about the program today. I'm going to introduce Dan Houston in just a second. But our speaker today is Arlene Cash, and of course, she's going to be speaking on unconscious bias. Arlene's currently the program manager of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Atrium Health. She's been in the organization for 20 years and has served as an organizational development consultant for the last 8 years prior to transitioning to her current role in 2012. Her present role includes providing leadership and planning and development of diversity-centered education and opportunities for Atrium's health workforce, and partnering with departments within the organization on strategic initiatives, programmatic activities that involve supporting a culture of inclusion and learning. She also facilitates diversity-related professional development classes through the organization, and she's a 2019 Atrium Health Pinnacle Award honoree. We're really excited to have you, Arlene, but before we actually get started, I want to recognize the chair of our diversity program for the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, Dan Houston.
Thanks so much, Bill. You know, this is a good kickoff, and Arlene, we're so glad to have you here talking about this very, very important subject, topic. It's on almost everybody's minds nowadays, implicit or unconscious bias. What we do with the Diversity Council is exactly that. Our main vision is bringing people together. And we recognize that people have different perspectives, and we want to honor those and celebrate those different perspectives and in a way that's non-judgmental, but in a way that makes people feel safe to be around folks. And here's the thing, and Arlene, you'll get to this whole notion of ability to ask questions and not be afraid to ask questions and just surface things that you just don't know. Because so often in today's time, people have a lot of questions about what's going on. Anything from the Black Life Movement all the way into, you know, implicit bias, into, you know, what do we need to do to make this an equitable, more fair society? These are issues that people have on their minds today. So we wanted to create the kind of atmosphere where people can actually talk about that. So we've designed a few things. I mean, once a quarter, we'll be doing a lunch and learn like this. And also, like everybody else, we've been in pandemic mode. So now we're hoping very soon to get out of it so we can go and do some face-to-face and really get to know each other a little bit better than what Zoom has been doing for us. Not that not to say anything wrong with Zoom, but just that it'll add another enhancement. We're also going to be spending some time developing and doing our women's conference this year. We have to suspend that, but we want to do that. And hopefully we're earmarking sometime in August where we'll do that. That's the real big celebration that we have of the different perspectives. So without that, I'll let Bill let Arlene get started, and looking so forward to her presentation. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Are you all able to see the screen here? Okay. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. And you know, Bill, I may certainly ask you as well, just in terms of the movement of the slides. Want to be sure that we're able to also you know, forward the slides as needed. Are you able to assist with that, Bill, on your end, or would it be easier if you were to?
You're in complete control right now.
Okay, all right. Let's see if I'm able to make sure that just in terms of movement of the slides here. Okay, want to be sure that that is movement. Okay, great. So just wanted to be able to make sure that I'm able to move forward as needed. Well, it is an honor and a privilege, certainly, to be here with you all. So thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing the information that you did. And congratulations on the work that you continue to do. Thank you as well to Heather for you know, this particular invitation. And I'm really thrilled to be here with you all this morning. So Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, you know, keep up the great work that you are doing. And, you know, as you celebrate or continue to celebrate Small Business Week. And thank you for that gracious invitation, and as well as the introduction that you gave, Bill. I am Arlene Cash. As was mentioned, I work with Atrium Health for the past 20 years, and since 2012 specifically in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I was born in Jamaica, the island of Jamaica. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been living in the Charlotte area now for about 24 years. And so this topic certainly continues to be very, very relevant in all of our lives, and certainly within our work places and our workspaces. And so I also would like to acknowledge, you know, some of my Atrium Health colleagues that I see on the call here. Good to see some familiar faces as well. So with Atrium Health, so very, very proud of our mission and our vision. Our mission to continue to improve health, elevate hope, advance healing for all, as well as to be the first and very best choice for care in all of our operations. And so we were very, very excited in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to really take, you know, this particular mission statement and vision statement and create what is known as our diversity and inclusion agenda. And so our agenda really focuses on three different areas: our patients, teammates, as well as community. So making sure that we're effectively providing that care for each one of our patients. And then how are we going to do this? As team members, to be sure that we're enhancing the skill sets of our team members in terms of promoting diversity and engaging each other to grow and to develop together. So cultural competence is really the underlying message here. So we define cultural competence really as just meeting people where they are. So how can I connect successfully with someone of a totally different cultural reality? And then remembering that we are a microcosm of all of our communities, and so continue to develop long-lasting and meaningful partnerships that supports our diversity efforts as we reach out to our at-risk communities. And so we have a variety of ways that we address diversity and inclusion within Atrium Health. a number of signature programs. You had mentioned that you have a women's conference that's forthcoming. So once a year, we have our annual diversity conference as well, which will take place on June 24th of this year, where we invite a number of local, national, sometimes international speakers. And this conference has been in existence for the past 19 years. We have a diversity certificate program, which is a 6-week long facilitator-led as well as experiential program that was launched in 2016 and is offered 3 times a year. When new team members come on board, we are sure to include the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, even from day one. And then a number of summits with our resource groups. We have a disability summit, or diversity leader speaker series. And then what we have incorporated more intentionally for the past few years is that of a courageous conversation. And creating that safe space to have a discussion about issues that affect us all, right? Within our society, within our communities. And certainly 2020 will continue to go down as a pivotal year where we have continued to ramp up these courageous conversations. And then a number of e-learnings as well. And we have customized consultation services. We are very, very proud of a very robust infrastructure that consists of a number of councils, divisional councils at the local level. So the purpose of the council is to provide leadership and guidance at a variety of areas and locations within our geographical footprint. And then our system resource groups provide that sense of belongingness, networking, mentorship, along the way. Because we recognize only 6 individuals within the Office of DE&I, there's no way that we're able to, do this work without our infrastructure group that affects over 75,000 or so of our team members. And so what we will engage in for these very few minutes, taking a look at this very, very important topic, developing a deeper understanding of bias, how does it impact us? And then what are some ways that we can explore, ways to mitigate bias and stereotypes by cultivating and developing meaningful connections. And so bias defined, right? Oftentimes, I think we move directly to the negative when we hear the term bias, but all it is just a strong preference in favor of or against. Could be a thing or person or group. It certainly can be held by individuals, a group, or an entire organization. And so what we have to be sure is that as individuals and certainly as leaders in our spaces, that we're not allowing these strong preferences to overtake our decision making. And so if we're human, we certainly have bias, right? It's just part of our DNA, if you will, and is often through the lens through which we see the world around us. I mentioned to you before that I was born in Jamaica, so having that immigrant experience. So I see the world through those lenses. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, growing up in New York City, I see the world as well through those lenses. Living now in the South, in Charlotte, for over 20 years, I see the world through those lenses. And so really looking at our collective in terms of how we interact and how we engage with the world around us. And aren't we all witnesses to this graphic, right? So some may say, no, this is a 6. Others may say, no, this is a 9. No, this is a 6. No, I think this is really a 9. And so we have that back and forth, this discourse, and oftentimes contentious debates about situations that occur. And so I love this quote by Anais Nin. We see things not as they are, but as we are. So really that recognition that what transpires before us, our experiences, there are a number of things that certainly affect how we see the world, and several sources of bias. So our experiences, certainly our backgrounds, information that we consume, whether it could be through the news, social media, stories, could be books, movies, you name it. Our education, the schools that we attended. Earlier, I was having a conversation with Dan about schools that we attended in New York City. The subjects that we certainly studied, the levels of study that we also pursued, our overall context, family, friends, work, where we live, what we do, who do we spend our time with, our culture, spoken as well as unspoken rules of our community and in our society, and certainly our innate overall characteristics. So all of these factors shape how we see the world. And then, common, types of biases, examples of these. We have confirmation, anchoring in group, and then negativity bias. A confirmation bias is where we tend to seek out information that supports our existing beliefs. An anchoring bias is where we tend to rely on the very first piece of information that we see. In-group bias, we tend to favor people that we like and who may also like us, while excluding and even sometimes judging those who may be different. And then negativity bias, we're more powerfully influenced by negative experiences than positive or even neutral ones. One example of a negativity bias is where we may have had a very unpleasant or very negative experience with a person of a specific demographic. And so in our minds, then we start to label, if you will, and categorize all individuals within that demographic by even saying things, well, they're all that way, or they're all like that. And so here are just some common examples of bias. So how does bias continue to show up in our everyday work and world, right? In our workplaces, in our workspaces, in our businesses as well. And so research was done here. Does taller equal a better leader? So the average American male is 5'9". Only 14.5% of American men are over 6 feet tall. And among Fortune 500 CEOs, more than half of them are 6 feet tall. Not only that, they make a lot more money, right? And so it is so interesting in terms of how we reward, if you will, could be individuals of a certain demographic, and how we, categorize them in our minds. If we say CEO, the first things that come into mind, probably for many of us, would be male, and for many would potentially even be a white male, right? Among women, ascension into leadership is not necessarily, in terms of how that's rewarded, is not necessarily height. It's probably more than likely overall attractiveness, right? And so these are just some things that are in the ground, if you will, in the water, if you will, in terms of how we recognize bias and the unconscious, the implicit implications. And then many of you may already be familiar with this resume study. Are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakeisha and Jamal? And resumes with typical mainstream sounding names, more than likely, over 50% more likely than ethnic sounding names to get callbacks for interviews. And it's not necessarily only names like Lakeisha and Jamal, which are, prominently African-American names. It could be Latino, Hispanic names. It could be Eastern European names. It could be names that we may have some impatience around in terms of even pronunciation. And so, in some instances, there are some, if you're in a leadership position, you may not want to engage in that way. And so, here again, we have this unconscious impact, something that we certainly need to pay attention in our hiring practices, promotion practices as well. The unconscious impact this time around gender inequities, around pay, So a study of 127 professors. The only difference, again, was in the name, John or Jennifer. Just so happens that John was rated higher and was paid more money than Jennifer. Here is an example, again, just regional differences that we continue to wrestle with even within our American construct. And it's interesting how we assign, certain roles, or we assign certain labels. Southern accents perceived, right, as being less educated and nice, whereas a Northern accent, again, perceived as being a little bit smarter or in charge. Foreign accents, again, we may have some impatience with that, probably with the exception of the British foreign accent, which is considered to be perceived, again, more educated, if you will. And then it's interesting how we assign either positive and or negative associations based on where we live in the United States. So the whole notion of that labeling, certainly continues when we're talking about stereotypes, which are just widely held, fixed, oversimplified, very limited in scope about individuals and about their specific capabilities. And then, with stereotypes, that pretty much imply that all individuals within a certain group, they imply that all people are the same if you belong to a certain group. Oftentimes contains a judgment, and also very, very inflexible. There is that notion or that question that may come up. Well, some folks may ask, well, isn't there some truth to stereotypes? Aren't stereotypes true? And to answer this particular question, Chimamanda Adichie, a wonderful Nigerian author, poet, and activist, in her TED Talk entitled "The Danger of a Single Story." And definitely encourage you to go out there and check out this TED Talk. Is one of the top 25 or so TED Talks still to this day. She says that, the single story does create stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue. So there may be some level of truth there, but they are incomplete. So they make one story become the only story. And so what we need to do, certainly as human beings, is to consistently wrestle with this. Do I have all the information that I need to make this decision, this particular decision? Do I have the data that is needed? Or am I only going off of a sliver of information, or could be one rumor that I may be hearing about this individual? And so once again, making sure that we have the full story in a play. So we talked about the definition of bias. We talked about defining stereotypes. So now, what can we do about this? How can we unpack, and how can we navigate and mitigate our biases and stereotypes? And one very powerful way of doing this is through what is known as the implicit association test, or the IAT. A few years ago, we had one of the gurus of this work, Dr. Mahzarin Banaji, as one of our speakers at our annual conference. And, Mahzarin Banaji says that, I have done a lot of work on this, and I am still struggling, with this. As well. And so the IAT provides a battery of a variety of different tests going through various dimensions of diversity, could be a gender, age, race. It even has political affiliations that you can take a specific test on. And it is just showing you where are some possible areas in terms of making improvement in your approaches when you interact with someone. Sometimes folks will come back to me and say, I don't like the results of this test. It's just not true. That's just not who I am. And oftentimes I will need to say, this is not a report card on your soul. This is just sharing information, giving you some insights as to ways that we can navigate and just bringing further awareness, on that particular topic. And so another way in terms of mitigation is just taking that pause. Oftentimes when we're in interactions, it can become emotionally charged, if you will. And I don't know about you all, but I know I've opened my mouth and said certain things at a certain time where I can't take it back anymore, right? And so making sure that we are in that place and that space mentally so that we are able to address these situations. So paying attention, acknowledging that bias is certainly there, understanding, moving towards understanding, not necessarily to be right, but moving towards how can I understand that other person's perspective, searching for a variety of options and approaches, and then executing my plan moving forward. So it's really taking that breath, if you will, that pause button, that refresh button, so that I'm able to think even more clearly. And then really cultivating connections through empathy, through curiosity. So with empathy is that ability to understand, again, another person's perspectives, their feelings, their emotions. Curiosity, that desire to learn more about someone or something. And so the marriage of the two, if you will, that will lend itself in coming up with a more value-oriented solution. And then I may need to examine my circle, my inner circle. Do I have a tendency of only engaging or hanging out with folks who are just like me? If I were to invite folks over to dinner, right, for example, would they only be individuals who are like I am? So not only from a cultural perspective, but even from a thought process perspective, do I only engage folks who may agree with me, right? Or am I open to others who may challenge my own assumptions? So we have this opportunity to examine our circle and frequent connections. And then that ability, right, to choose courage. So very, very key, so very, very important in the work that we do. When we're talking about courage, being able to step out there, even though we may be afraid, even though we may be unsure. And so that courage to identify, notice that bias is happening. So bias happens at the speed of thought. And when we have the courage to identify that bias within ourselves or even in others, then we can begin to make some greater impact. Embracing that opportunity, using it as a learning, moment, if you will. And then that courage to ally in terms of helping others. And so whether you are the subject of bias or not, being an ally can bring about that particular change. So offering that support, that mentoring, helping others is very, very key. And then that courage, again, to advocate proactively in moving and stepping outside of our comfort zones, speaking up when we need to as well. And so we just covered some, specific tactics around mitigating a bias. So we started this conversation with, identifying a bias, defining it, sources of bias. And then we talked about stereotypes and how we need to be careful that we are engaging with the full story instead of going on one piece of information. And then we talked about some ways that we can navigate and mitigate a bias. And so Dr. Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, we all have the opportunity to do better, we were so fortunate to have had her as well, Dr. Angelou, at our conference in 2013 as well. So I am, still obsessed with the musical Hamilton. And I'm not even, I lost count. I have to tell you, I lost count the number of times that I've seen this. There is one line, among many that really stands out to me. It says, history has its eyes on you. And so we all have that opportunity in our daily interactions, whether we are interacting with our family, whether we are interacting with our colleagues at work, with our community members, with our community partners. What is that quality of interaction like? Right? Are individuals really, am I contributing to the value of that, who that individual is? Am I truly living and in such a way as to continue to bring honor to the work and world in which I am a part of? Am I exhibiting courage? Am I being culturally competent? Am I meeting that individual where they are? And so we will all leave a specific legacy, right? And so history has its eyes on us from day to day. And so we are tasked, certainly, with this work. We are tasked with continuing to have that courage to speak up and to speak out when bias does occur. So really, it has been, I know my time is at hand, it has truly been an honor and an absolute privilege just to share these few minutes with you. And I believe at this time, Bill, do we have a Q&A? Is that correct on our time?
Absolutely. If you want to bring down the sharing and we'll, does anybody have any questions of Arlene?
Well, Lynn, I just have to tell you, I am so excited about your presentation. In such a, in 35 to 40 minutes, you've condensed college level and more advanced courses on this topic. I have never seen anyone do such a good job in such a short period of time. So I want to thank you for that. And I guess my question would be, and this is, I'm relating to Dan Houston. This is my issue. That I like what you said about confirmation bias. That's one of my biases that I struggle with. If I, sometimes when someone's saying something on TV that I like, I'm high-fiving them. And as soon as they say something that I don't like, I change the channel, because this confirmation bias has to take place. But your whole thing about courage, it's incredible how you, because I think that's what we need now. We need people to be courageous. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I know you spent some time on it, but I was so fascinated by how you pictured courage here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Dan, for your question. And why to me courage is so important is that's something that I personally still struggle with. Right. There are times when I think, Arlene, you hit it right on the mark, but there's still other instances looking back. Oh, I should have said something. I should have intervened. I should have advocated there. And so what's fascinating to me about courage is why is it in such little we don't see that demonstrated as much in many instances. And I think it's because of the fear factor. I think folks could be just afraid in whatever way, shape, or form. And so the good thing that I've seen how that comes across within our work and world at Atrium Health, we, especially last year, in this course of, continued racial and social unrest, if you will, we have moved in such a way in creating those safe spaces for our teammates at Atrium Health to talk about even the fear factor. I am afraid, but I am still here as a part of this discourse. I am here because I'm interested in your perspective. And so we engaged our CEO all the way throughout, or leaders in our C-suite all the way throughout, in having these courageous conversations to talk about some tough things. And so I'm still learning the importance of coming out of my comfort zone and stepping into those waters, because that's exactly how we move the needle. So, courage, yeah, it's hard, certainly, but it's so needed. It is still so very, very needed.
Well, Arlene, we really appreciate you being a part of today's program. There are going to be 4 quarterly Lunch and Learn diversity workshops, as Dan talked about when we first started up. They are sponsored by Atrium Health, and we're looking for the next one that we put together in a couple of months. We have a whole host of activities this week. It's Small Business Week. So on Wednesday, we're going here at the Chamber of Commerce at 4 o'clock. We're going to be recognizing the outstanding small business from Cornelius, Davidson, Huntersville, and Morrisville. Later that night, Wednesday night and Thursday night, we have a motivational program starting at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Chuck Gallagher is our keynote speaker on Wednesday. And on Thursday, we have Rebecca Heiss. There's going to be talking about rewiring your brain. So that's going to be a really good program. Rebecca is a Latino speaker that has got quite a following that she's pulling together. And again, we hope that you can go to the website at lakenormanchamber.org to see all of these activities. Want to again thank Lori Thomas with CPCC for being one of our sponsors of Small Business Week. And again, can't thank Atrium enough for sponsoring this program and our diversity program. Dan just alluded to, we have the Women's Conference coming up in August. Sylvia, do you want to share anything about that? Do we have a date locked in?
Well, we're trying. We're working on August 5th. I'm just waiting for the ladies to confirm the speakers can come back. We do have 120 seats sold and reserved. We just hope that the folks will still be able to do that and keep that date in August, since we had to move it a full year and 6 months. So, but
Right.
and
Dan,
today was great. I love today's presentation. Thank you.
And Dan, on September 16th, we have our diversity power luncheon that is going to be held at Northstone Country Club, September 16th. And at that particular program, we also recognize the individual, the nonprofit, the small business, and the corporation that promotes diversity and inclusion in the workforce. So we'll be sending out nomination forms that people can nominate those individuals and those companies. Dan, do you have any final thoughts as our diversity chair?
I don't. I mean, I think this has been wonderful. It's just that whole notion of being courageous is such a good theme. And I think, Bill, that might even be a theme as we go forward in the next couple of quarters, how to have courageous conversations and be courageous and stuff. So, Arlene, thank you. I mean, someone from Brooklyn College and University of Massachusetts, I knew you were going to bring it. So why did you have to conclude it with Maya Angelou?
with Dr. Angelou.
Yes. Thank you so
Yes.
much for that.
Yes, absolutely.
She's such a bright star, and that whole it's so funny too, because and Bill, I love this. I hear a lot of people saying, "Fake it until you make it." But I love Michael Angelo's quote on "Do it until you can do it." How did it go, Arlene? What was the quote? How did that go?
Do the best you can.
Right. Do the best you can.
Do the best you
until
can.
you know better.
Yep.
And then when you know better. Yep. Exactly.
Do better.
Then you can do better. Yep. That's
such a
to me is a
wonderful.
whole continuum of learning, right? Of stepping into those waters. So it's not a one and done. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's such a cool way. That's such a cool way to end this too. Thank you, Bill, for doing this, and Sylvia, thank you for all that you've done to bring this together too. And for the folks at Adrian, I know that you guys spent some time in this planning. This wasn't just something you just decided to do and overnight you did it. We can tell that you put a lot of effort and energy into it. So we really, up here in Lake Norman, we really want to thank you for that. Thank you so much.
For those on the call, this program was recorded. So if you've got a friend or associate that you think would gained some insight from seeing this. We'll try to have this program up and on the website later on today. And again, want to thank our speaker, Arlene. We want to thank CPCC, and we want to thank Atrium for making this all possible. And Dan's in the airport.
Yep.
We
I
said,
hope I catch my flight.
now you can go catch your flight.
I will. Thank you
Have a
guys
great
so
day,
much.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
right.
It was a
Okay.
peace and blessings, everyone. Safe travels, Dan.
Thank you so much. You guys take care now.
All right, you
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.